our role is, simply put, it's what we always say, the cliche is to reflect the market, okay? We're not the gas pedal to make the market move. We're not the brake pedal to stop deals from happening. We reflect the market.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome back to the Appraiser Coach Podcast. My name is Dustin Harris. I am the Appraiser Coach. Got a great guest coming up. Once again, good friend of mine. Can't wait to introduce you to him. First, want to pause here and remind you that we are sponsored by three great companies. Of course, we are sponsored by Working RE magazine. Working RE is providing great information for appraisers across the nation, both in their print and their online versions. Check them out by going to workingre.com. Again, it's workingre.com. A la Mode. I just got off the phone with A la Mode just a few minutes ago. What a great team over there trying to help solve problems and make sure that appraisers are staying efficient. It's alamode.com or 800 A la Mode. And finally, Datamaster. Datamaster saving appraisers about 30 to 60 minutes per report. You can find out more by going to datamasterusa.com. Again, it's datamasterusa.com. I want to welcome back to the program a good friend of mine, Mr. Ryan Lundquist. Ryan, welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. We're at hopefully toward the end of the pandemic rather than the beginning when we talked last.
You talk very optimistically. I'm glad to hear that. You know, I know that you don't do a lot of these interviews anymore, so I feel very grateful that you accepted my invitation to come back. It's been a while since you and I talked, almost a year. In fact, when this airs, it'll be about a year. In fact, I think we're recording this probably about the same time 1 year ago that we did our last interview. That was episode number 531. And Ryan, if you'll remember, we talked about the pandemic, and keep in mind, this was the end of March. Again, it aired in April, but we recorded that at the end of March. So the pandemic was pretty new back then.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I don't know about you, but I feel like I learned a lot about life, and I certainly became a better appraiser, I think, through this.
You know, that is such an interesting comment to make because I feel the exact same way. I didn't know what to expect. You know, you and I think we did a few predictions maybe and got our crystal balls out and said, you know, what's this pandemic going to do to us? What's it going to do to appraisers? We got a lot of things right. We got a lot of things wrong, I'm sure. But if there's anything to be said, we learned a lot in the process. Let's start on a personal level, if you don't mind, Ryan. I know there's a lot of people that follow you. In fact, if you don't mind, just give a quick shout out where people can find you if they don't already.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm at sacramentoappraisalblog.com, and my handle's SacAppraiser on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah. And if you don't follow Ryan, you definitely need to. Here's a guy who really keeps in touch, not just with the Sacramento market, although he is a shining example of what we should each be doing in our own markets, but really keeps his finger on the pulse across the nation as to what's going on in the real estate market, and is a great source of information. Ryan, you as you've gone, we've all gone through this pandemic and we've all had our ups and downs the last year. You've definitely had your share. If you don't mind, I don't know how much you want to share, but last summer you got kind of knocked upside the head, didn't you?
Yeah, I was thinking, wait, knocked up, Dustin, what are you talking about, my friend?
Let me finish.
That's something else, buddy.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah, I had quite a summer. I ended up having, I think it was a 6-night luxurious stay in the hospital. And I have ulcerative colitis. And I know some people think, hey, don't talk about your colon, man. But here I am. This is real life. And it's something that I've had for a lot of years. And I got hit with a heavy, flare up, and I couldn't control it. I lost 20 pounds in about 2 weeks. And wow. It was a really tough time. Ended up taking about 3 months off of work also. And so it was interesting doing taxes this year. But I will say, I mean, through all of that, one of the reasons why I wanted to come on this podcast is you have a huge audience with appraisers. I just wanted to say thank you to so many who supported me. It was kind of an awkward thing to have a GoFundMe floating around out there. I think my colon became internet famous, and and even clients were like mentioning, like finding out what was going on. It was just a weird time, but I know so many appraisers came by and supported my family financially, and it really helped sustain us in so many ways. It carried me last year. It gave me space to take time off and really heal. And I'm doing really, really great now.
Good.
Kind of, watching my health in a lot of ways. Really, it was it was a big wake up call for me last year. And so I feel like I'm in a much different place. I'm no longer drinking coffee or espresso, which is a huge trigger for me. I know you don't drink that anyway, but it's there's just a lot of changes that I've made. And so my clothes fit better now. And so a lot of good stuff happening.
Well,
So.
you look fabulous. I know this is just audio for most people, but I can testify Ryan looks great, and I'm glad to hear things are better. I know that these types of things. My own wife has had a challenge with different diseases and had to adjust her exercise routines and her diet and just how much she can push herself and not push herself. And so I know a little bit about that side of things. And my hat goes off to you, my friend. It's a huge thing to make those major adjustments in your life, and you're better for it. But it's what happens. Our lives are up to the universe as far as which direction we go. But you're a good man.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. And, thank you for your support too, Dustin.
Well, Ryan, I want to talk a little bit about this last year. As I mentioned earlier, you were on episode number 531, where we talked about, this was all brand new. I had just gotten back from Peru, where I almost got stuck. They closed the borders literally 24 hours after I flew out. And in fact, my daughter got stuck down there, and it took us about 3.5 weeks before we were able to extract her from that great country. And everything was new and everything was up in the air. And we had no idea what this would do, not just to the world, but to the real estate market and values and real estate appraisers going in houses and different things. Tell me a little bit about your experience this past year, health aside, your business side of things.
Sure. Well, I think one of the things that I've really, beefed up is my explanation of the market, my analysis of what the market's doing, and, just having to suspend judgment entirely, thinking, well, I don't know what the market's going to be like during a global pandemic, and just having to gauge profound uncertainty at first. And I think in one of the things that I feel like I excelled at was being objective. And, not that I got my value right, in every report or anything, but I found that my local market had so many questions, and I did so many Zoom meetings. That was a lesson in overcommitting, lesson learned for last year. But I found that people were reaching out to me to say, what is the market doing? Help us understand what's going on. And I found that especially during the first 4 to 6 weeks of the pandemic, we did see prices dip, pending contracts, drop by 40% in a very short period of time in volume. And so the market was in this state where I think a lot of people were thinking, has it turned? We've seen 8+ years of price growth, and is it going to start doing something else? And so I found that I think the role of an appraiser is incredibly valuable. And our objectivity is really our value proposition to the market to say, hey, let's cut through all the hype and let's look at, here are the metrics to look at to understand how the market's moving. And here, before we have sales stats, we start to see the market rebounding. And so it's, for me, I feel like I've been entrenched in numbers. It's felt honestly a little bit dull this year. I just feel like all I'm looking at is numbers, but at the same time, it's been a very powerful season of storytelling and becoming an even deeper source for my local market to say, here's what's happening, here's why it's happening. And to have news media reach out, of course, that's always nice, but most importantly, to have brokers and offices and agents and loan officers just reaching out to rely on not only my services, doing appraisals, but my perspective. And so I think that's been the biggest thing that I've taken from this pandemic. It just that the market's always moving, and I want to sort of, be ahead of it. I want to find language for it. Even now, we've experienced such rapid appreciation lately, and I'm finding ways to talk about that with my local market, and borrowing a little bit from Ann O'Rourke and talking about, we're in this sort of auction environment right now, and it's just been utterly insane in many parts of the country. Definitely in Sacramento.
I want to ask you a question, Ryan, and then I want to set it up. So the question is, what is the role of an appraiser? Now, let me set it up before I let you answer. I was online the other day, and one of these popular appraisal forums, and there was some discussion. You brought up the appreciation that's going on in many markets across the nation, and this was a topic on one of these appraisal forums. And I'm going to paraphrase, and maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but I don't think too much. Some of the appraisers would make comments such as, "Well, I'm not going to make a time adjustment. I just don't. I don't agree with what's going on. I don't agree with what buyers are doing. I think that this is a false market. I think that the things are being falsely inflated, and I don't want to be a part of that. I was a part of that in 2007, 2008, and I don't want to be a part of that again. And so I'm just going to report what's there. I'm going to be, as Craig Morley always talks about, looking in the rearview mirror regarding, sales and what's actually occurred, not what's happening. So again, the question with that on the table, what is the role of an appraiser?
That's a great question. And I think it's something that we have to understand and embrace no matter what the market's doing, whether it's increasing or flat or declining. Our role is, simply put, it's what we always say, the cliche is to reflect the market. Okay. We're not the gas pedal to make the market move. We're not the brake pedal to stop deals from happening. We reflect the market, whether we agree with it or not. It doesn't matter what we think, whether I would buy, whether I think prices are moving too fast. The market has been very rapid lately, and prices in my market, most metrics are up. For a while, the market was slowing down, but it's been major, foot, on the gas pedal, pedal to the metal time. And my job is to simply, reflect that. And so I might be in a neighborhood, and I'm thinking of a first-time buyer neighborhood in my market that has gone up easily by 10% since the summer. Okay.
Wow.
And, I think when I came into the profession, it was sort of like, yeah, you can give about a 1% up adjustment per month. And, but it's like, there's no 1% adjustment rule. If I'm looking at a comp from July and it's now March, then I might be having to say plus $50,000, which would be 12% or whatever, and just call it a day, because that's what my graphs are showing.
Sure.
That's what I'm looking at, sales and pendings, and I'm going, everything is up. And if I'm not giving adjustments up, then I might really be doing what every real estate professional sort of critiques the profession, the appraisal profession. What they say is that appraisers are reflecting the past. Okay. I
Sure.
saw the other day a report that a realtor friend, emailed me a report. I don't usually look at them, but she's like, can you please look at this? And I looked at the report, didn't give commentary on value, but I did, say, I noticed this appraiser in an increasing market in her neighborhood used 2 sales from January and didn't make any adjustments up. Okay. Now these properties had about 2 months of market appreciation, and that was probably the X factor with realistically why this one came in lower than it should have. Right. Now our
Sure.
job is not to, meet the contract price. There's just crazy offers out there. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
keep telling my, on my blog, and I keep talking to people like, look, appraisers are not there to ratify the highest auction price there is. That's not our role, but
Thank goodness.
we certainly, yeah, but we certainly want to adequately reflect the market, and if this property, there are so many offers coming in, and I'm coming in at such a lower number, it's okay if the market really is at that, lower. But I think we just at least have to ask, am I adequately gauging how rapidly the market has been increasing? If I look at price metrics and they're up, 15 to 20%, well, have I been giving adjustments all year long to sort of account for this change? Or am I sort of stuck in my, well, gotta stick with 1%, or, whatever the number is? It's like, I think sometimes we have to approach our profession objectively, look at the market and say, okay, what's the difference between pendings and sales? What might I need to adjust up because maybe the market has changed more substantially? And I hope that wasn't too nerdy. I feel like I just vomited
No.
out a bunch of stuff.
You know what, Ryan? I'm actually going to ask you to get a little bit more nerdy on us, if you don't mind, because I have appraisers reach out from time to time, because we are in a crazy market, and we are seeing escalating clauses, and we are seeing. I mean, I saw somebody brought up on a webinar this morning, and I can't remember if it was in Arizona or somewhere else, but I guess it's been all over the social media, where there was one home I want to say had 120 offers on this place, and we're seeing, now granted that's an anomaly, of course, that's why it's all over social media, but I'm seeing constantly 8, 10, 12, sometimes 20 offers on a property, and it's not necessarily the highest that gets it. It's as creative as they can be with the financing. Maybe it's the cash offer, maybe it's something else, but we're seeing a lot of craziness in the business. Let me just ask you to get a little bit more nerdy, if you don't mind. And the question on the table is, how do you specifically gauge market appreciation? And what I mean by that is, some appraisers will look at, say, the MC sheet, and they'll say, well, okay, I can see an appreciation here. And if I take, where the MC sheet is kind of weird with, it's only got 3 numbers, but it shows a whole year. And so 2 of those numbers are 6 months. So let's add these 2 together and let's divide by this number. And okay, we see an appreciation of 1.2% per month. But you're saying you get a little bit more detailed even than that.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of the MC form for that very reason. I think it's clunky. It's kind of weird to compare the year in unequal chunks. And so I think that if we're relying on that solely, we're maybe missing the market, and it's only as good as the data that's available. Okay, if we have limited sales, we're going to have to find another way to see the market. And so I'm a pretty simple guy. I think the first thing that we can do, let's look at the difference between sales and current pendings and what's happening with the listings. Okay, and I think that if we piece together multiple points of data, we can sort of understand, okay, it looks like $10,000 to $15,000, and understanding the terms from the agents and how many offers were there, and what type of feedback did you get, and we start to hear from all these agents that they've got 10 to 15 offers at a totally different price point. Well, maybe the market has moved up quickly, and maybe it's buyers who are running to the market who are trying to secure a low mortgage rate in an environment where rates are beginning to rise. Like, there's a lot of reasons why there's incentive to get in very, very quickly. Okay, so I do that. I simply just study the difference between pendings and sales, but I make scatter graphs. Okay, this is something that any appraiser can do. And I'm making a trend line, and I'm looking at my trend line over time. And what I can do is that if my trend line really is it's lining up with what I'm seeing with pendings and sales, this upward pressure. It's sort of a systems of checks and balances where I can sort of bounce off, like, okay, it looks like my line is looking at like it's up from about 10% from the summer, and it looks like actual sales versus pendings are the same. Like, so it gives me confidence that, oh, there's the line. For me, I spend time in every report analyzing the market, and I spend time, making those quick graphs. I have, I mean, there's so many tools that people can use, of course, probably some of the companies that are sponsoring you. I have my own template that I use. I dump data in there, and I'm really visualizing the market. I have a duplex on my desk right now, and I'm looking at all duplex sales over the past 20 years, and I'm really honing in right now and like, where does it look like the market's gone recently? Because I'm going to have to make some adjustments up. I'm going to rely heavily on that trend line. And so I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I'm not doing anything incredibly complex, but I find that this is a system where I'm developing adjustments, and then I'm just asking, do these adjustments seem to line up with where the current market is at? Do these adjustments make sense? Like, if this property was actually placed on the market, is this a reasonable reflection of what it would sell for? And I think as we start to ask all those questions and sort of juggle pendings and sales and trend lines and any other data sources we would use, that's really helpful. I think one thing too to consider is just price metrics. Like in my market, I can look at price stats, and I know that, hey, the median price was $485,000 in January, and it's up. It's going to be up about $20,000 to $25,000 from then to now. Now, that may not translate into every single neighborhood. But here's the thing: if price metrics for a zip code or a county, if they're going bananas, and then I'm, giving very tiny adjustments in my neighborhood,
Right.
like it's at least a clue that, hey, if the rest of the market has gone up 10% here, and I'm going like 1% per month is what I can give because that's what my mentor taught me, then it's just a systems of checks and balances. Like, maybe I need to sort of dive in deeper to be sure that I'm being reasonable.
We're talking with Ryan Lundquist of Sacramento Appraiser blog and Sac Appraiser. Ryan, when we get back from the break, I want to talk to you a little bit more about data, big data, and how that affects us as appraisers and what we should be looking at. I want to pause here and, of course, remind everybody that we are sponsored by some great companies, one of them being Working RE Magazine. They are a great company that is on the edge of what's going on in the appraisal world, the appraisal news, with the career that you have chosen, folks. If you want to know what's going on, I highly recommend that you sign up for their free blog. You can just go to their website, workingre.com, and sign up for their free blog. Again, it's workingre.com. We've been speaking about data, and folks, how would you like to save time and energy getting that data into your reports? I'll tell you, if you have not checked out Data Master recently, and I know you're going to say, well, Dustin, I checked it out and they're not in my area. Folks, trust me, they've added all kinds of areas over the last couple months and years. If it's been a while since you checked, datamasterusa.com, I encourage you to go there and find out if they're in your market. If they are, what are you waiting for? This is a great opportunity for you to save time, save money as an appraiser, to be more efficient. datamasterusa.com. Again, it's datamasterusa.com. Finally, we're sponsored by Alamode Software. I told you that I called Alamode just before I got on with Ryan, and that's true. And some of you might say, well, if they're such a great company, why do you have to call their tech support? Well, because they're software, folks. And every once in a while, you're going to have to call their tech support. But they have tech support that is unsurpassed in the marketplace. I was on the phone with them within about 2 minutes of calling them. I was with a senior tech going through some very complicated stuff with regard to my network and things that were happening. They did not solve my problem yet. They told me that they would call me by the end of the day with a solution, and I have absolute faith that they will. That's the kind of company that I like to work with, and it's the kind of company I've been working with for over 20 years. It's Alamode, folks. Alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE. And welcome back to the program, everybody. We're talking with Ryan Lundquist. He's out of Sacramento. Sac Appraiser, if you're on Twitter, and the Sacramento Appraisal blog. Is that correct, Ryan? Did I say that right?
You said it right.
Awesome. Great source of information for appraisers, for buyers, for sellers, for realtors, for lenders, for anybody, and sets a great example for appraisers across the country what we should be doing in our market. Ryan, you were talking before the break about data. You were talking about looking at time adjustments, looking at prices, looking at multiple offers and different things. I want to go back to the question that I asked earlier and maybe twist it just a bit. One of the questions I asked earlier is, what is the role of appraiser? I want to twist that and say, how is an appraiser different than a computer, an AVM? Why is an appraiser, a physical person, so important in this process?
Well, I mean, obviously, like the saying goes, you can't smell if 20 cats live there. And I think that there's something to be said for, for measuring a property and measuring a market and having the human element. If we really are reflecting the market, if we're doing a good job with that, then we're in touch with the tastes and, preferences and what buyers really want, what they're willing to pay for. And so I think that's very powerful. Obviously, there's a place for an algorithm in today's world. And we can get into that if you want, of course, but I think that the human appraiser brings to the table some important analysis and ability to understand a market and to reflect that. I think that's very powerful, and I think theoretically the human should be doing a better job, whether we do or not. I guess big data will tell us one day, right?
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about big data. There's a lot out there. Of course, appraisers are known for despising places like Zillow and Redfin and some of these others that are out there putting out data, but even that data, I think, is important to analyze because it's part of the landscape. It's part of the buyer-seller process. I'm a buyer. I'm an investor. I'm constantly looking at different markets, and I hate to admit it, but Zillow is a pretty good source to get a snapshot for what's going on in a market. But you're talking about more than that, right? When you talk about big data, break it down. And what does an appraiser, a good appraiser, someone who who truly is a professional, what does an appraiser do with that big data?
Well, I mean, I don't know that we do, the same thing with, big data would be looking, having an AVM and an appraisal waiver, and they have a purpose, I think, in some cases to do the appraiser's job for the appraiser. And so I think that they're getting to it in a matter of, seconds, for something that would take us, multiple weeks right now to pull off. And so with how backed up appraisers are. And so I don't know that we're really doing, I mean, maybe it's the same thing, but on a more limited basis. There's a place for a waiver. I totally get that. I refinanced my house. We got into a rate below 3%, didn't take any cash out, and I was okay that an appraiser didn't come to my house, right, and call out some silly deferred maintenance. Like I was like, all right, this is okay. I get it as a consumer, okay. But clearly, I would say as we look at this trend, it's something that's happening in the market, and we could either be, I think, afraid of it, or we can realize that there is a place for big data in real estate. Just like I think in the agent community. Agents are, constantly talking about, the iBuyers and, the Zillows and Redfins and Open Doors of the world who are purchasing properties, or Zillow became a brokerage now. And, there's concern there. But I think that what we have to do in real estate is realize that, hey, there's big data that's infiltrating the market. It's going to have a certain share of the market, okay? And so we have to get better at what we do. We have to, especially on the appraiser side of things, we have to excel in our market analysis, okay? Anyone can fill out a form, and frankly, it looks like, eventually, property inspectors can show up to a house and do that part. I think it seems like the GSEs are pushing us to say, we value your analysis, okay? And I think the market is too, and that's sort of our value proposition, to say, I'm able to analyze the market, explain what's going on, show that visually if necessary, and make appropriate adjustments and all that stuff. And so that's why this is really valuable. And so, but I think overall this is happening, and I just look at it and go, all right, well, I'm not going to wake up and stress about it every day, but I'm certainly not going to ignore it and persist and do everything that I've always done. I might diversify my business in some ways. I might just continually try to say, how can I do a better job telling the story of the market? How can I build relationships with customers and clients? How can I be an expert in my local market and tell the story of value on a broader platform also?
Ryan Lundquist, thank you, my friend. You always bring such great insight, such great wisdom to the microphone. I appreciate you being on. I appreciate the time. Glad you're feeling better, my friend, and look forward to having you on again.
Hey, thanks, Dustin. And thank you, everyone, again. I appreciate your support. Look forward to talking and having many conversations ahead.
Love it. Ryan Lundquist out of Sacramento, Appraiser, or the Appraiser, is the Sacramento Appraiser is where you can find him. One more time, Ryan, your website, in case there's somebody living under a rock and hasn't gone there yet.
Oh gosh, there's so many people. So SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Mr. Ryan Lundquist, thank you, my friend. And we, folks, will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.